All right, welcome everyone. We're Semblance of Sanity. I'm Caleb.
I'm Jacob.
And we're here for
Noragami, Season 2, Episode 10.
All right, Yato, you got some issues you're going to have to deal with here. Underworld, but then also, like,
more
Hiyori
importantly,
might be close to forgetting you.
Yeah, I feel like she's about this close to forgetting you for good. And she's forgotten you for now.
Yeah.
Which is bad enough. Because...
Yeah, what does
boyfriend
that mean for your permanence
stuff and
here?
all that. A boy kissed her, and that kind of, you know, whatever hope you had that she would remember you in that moment, just kind of disappeared.
To be fair, he kissed her.
Yes.
So there is an element of this that might actually just kind of shock her into just kind of like, whoa, what is going on? Boy's kissing me. I'm not sure how I feel about this.
Oh,
and she's probably not going to be like, I immediately love you and everything, because, you know.
Yeah.
Him kissing her.
But it is definitely something where it would draw her attention away from thinking about other things.
Definitely.
You know, because that's kind of a big deal in high school.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, Yato, you've kind of fallen in with Ebisu, which...
I mean,
Ebisu's...
I'm all for.
Ebisu's like a much more interesting character the more and more time we get with him.
He's fun.
All right, yeah. But good luck, buddy.
Yep.
So y'all, without further ado, let's get into this. All right, everyone, now be sure to go check out the reaction portion of the video in the description below, then come back here for the discussion. Hiyori just barely got to be able to remember.
Oh boy, that was
Okay.
the
Cool.
fact that Yukine goes up and talks to her, and at least she was able to hear him, but at the beginning she can't see him.
Yep.
That was like,
That's really freaky.
no, because that was the one thing that I was always kind of holding out hope for, right? Is that, okay, Yato's not around, she's starting to forget Yato, but Yukine,
He didn't forget her.
Right, he didn't forget her, you know, and they can just they can meet up and talk, and that can be the anchor point, right?
Yeah. And
But-
it was.
But came this close to not working.
Right. She almost thought she was going crazy listening to a pigeon talk to her.
Right.
Which, okay, good. So now we are back with that.
Yeah. And
Hiyori immediately finding out kind of, okay, this is how much time has passed since I stopped making entries about them.
This is serious. I need to actually concretely work on this.
So she goes and does some research.
Yep, I love it.
I liked the idea that in her kind of thinking this out, she's like, wait a minute, I actually don't know enough about Yato to be able to find him if I'm just looking for him. So I should go and do some research.
Yep.
There should be myths. There should be legends. There should be lore. There's nothing.
Right.
And the idea is that Yato being not his name just makes, well, a lot of sense in
I
terms
go
of...
by many names.
Yeah, exactly. And thus gods, as they, you know, were from way back when, you know, should have other names that they were you know, more attributing to. And, you know, she doesn't know what to look for then.
But that is at least an idea, right? And given the fact that we've now concretely confirmed that Nora's dad and Yato's dad are the same, because, or maybe not concretely, but yeah, it is. Yeah, because
How?
Because Nora was calling him father, and then Yato was saying, you know, like he mentioned like my old man, you know, told me to get this.
I think you just said old man. Like I get that that's something that like there were a bunch of people like on Patreon and stuff like that were like trying to bring that up and stuff.
Oh,
but it's like it feels like kind of a thing that was like kind of spoiled, if anything. Like,
wait, I'm confused.
How did you like? How did you draw the conclusion that he was?
He mentioned in the episode like my old man.
No, he didn't say my. He just said old man. I can go back to the bit there, but he didn't actually say that. Yeah. Yeah, when they're going through. Why do you want him back so badly, old man?
Oh, okay. Yeah. Gotcha.
Yeah, it's one of those things, y'all, where, like, I'm probably just missing the part where it was confirmed that this was the case there. But, like, yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I always just assumed that it was, like, his dad, but, like, it wasn't, like, necessarily, like, confirmed and whatnot, because then we'd have to get into the dynamic of what would be the connection between Nora and Yato beyond just, like, Regalia situation. But, okay.
Gotcha. So then what was your thing you wanted to bring up with that?
Well, what I was thinking is that if it's something where that is Yato's dad, then it could be something where that's them getting into Yato's history and potential other names that he had, right?
Because it could be tied basically to the father as well.
Right, because it makes sense that Yato doesn't want to talk about his past, right? It's a pretty dark past, right? He's done a lot of things that he's not proud of, right?
Yeah.
But from the standpoint of understanding him and getting to that point where, you know, multiple people can know about him and remember him and things like that, having that information is valuable, right? Because then that's you know, more that he can work with, and in his situation, since he's, you know, always doing these 5 yen jobs to just kind of eke out a way to stay not forgotten. Like, I feel like everything that he can you know, use is helpful. But okay, so not necessarily his dad. That makes a lot more sense, because I was like, wait, that makes the relationship between him and Nora even more complicated.
Well, I think if anything, it's more just that we either should have caught on to it by now because of other stuff, but nothing in this episode, I would say, directly pulls into that.
Gotcha.
But I think that is something that is actually confirmed.
Okay.
It's just something where there was a point that was brought up in a previous episode that I just didn't catch.
Okay. Gotcha.
But it is one of those things that I was going to bring up just eventually when they actually, like, as far as I noticed, confirmed it. Is that essentially when I think it was the last episode, there were some Patreon comments or something like that being like, why haven't they caught on to it yet? That, like, their dad or something like that. So it's like, oh.
Right. Well, yeah. Given the shots of him showing him like leading Yato by the hand and stuff, I figured at the very least he was, you know, father figure, you know, even if not like actually, you know, dad. And you know, I am curious how that works with like the gods and things like that. But yeah, we'll get into that when it's
we'll get into that
when it's relevant for the show.
Ebisu, though, having the main focus of this episode, though, is kind of interesting because Ebisu as a character is one that we still don't really know yet.
Yes.
He's one that kind of, like Yato, feels to be a little bit out of place. And given that we know only a little bit about how he has a lot of rapid successions and stuff, meaning that his god dies quite a bit because of corruption, and that being something that was essentially being used here by the old man, basically, the Nora's dad and probably Yato's dad, then him actually maybe breaking that cycle a little bit could be an interesting kind of human part of the story, if anything.
And I love that Yato was so adamant about like, no, I'm getting you out of here, damn it. You'll be able to figure out your experimentations on phantoms and shit.
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
Like, because it feels like something that's very relevant to Yato emotionally because he is the one that used to do the bad stuff, right? So, you know, even if it might not have been considered like bad or how bad it was considered from like a god perspective, right? It's something that he wasn't okay with, and now so there's this guy who's doing things that are generally considered not good, right? But he's still trying to do it and for genuine good reasons and motivations, right? So it's I want to help this guy out. I want to see him succeed.
But the reasons as to why someone deserves to live or someone deserves to exist or continue existing has nothing to do with their role or their fate or what have you. And that's where the spiritual elements of the story kind of clash with the idea of what it means to be human, because they're not human. So in this case here, Yato's kind of using a little bit of human logic, if you will, to kind of be like, hey, be selfish. What do you want?
Right.
And Yato maybe being someone who was a god of war, calamity, or death or something like that at some point means that he doesn't have to exist solely in that function. Thus, if he doesn't, you know, provide something that perpetuates that function, then he shouldn't exist, right? No, that's not the case at all. So in that respect, there could be some cool development that they get for Ebisu where he goes into what basically put him along this path. Maybe it was more or less the Regalia or some of the, not necessarily his Regalia, but the Regalia of his past predecessor to kind of push him to go in this specific
do this
way.
stuff.
And
Yeah.
it's something where he's like, no, I actually, like, I'm attached to this world. I have attachments not just to all this stuff, but also to my regalia, where I was heartbroken the idea of giving them up so that I might live. Now, that might have been
And it wasn't even his decision to do it, right? You know?
Yeah, exactly. Now, that might have been because he's like, no, if anyone should die here, it should be me, and they should live on. And that seems like him being a wholesome boy.
And I will just be reincarnated and stuff, so it doesn't really matter.
Doesn't really matter.
But it also, one of the other things that I thought was really cool about this is that we had all of this of the close connection with the regalia, right? Which makes sense. You would hope that gods would have close connection to their regalia. But we had the Heavenly Guard people or whatever mentioned that most of his regalia are Nora's. Now, it might have just been that the regalia that they dealt with and the ones that are with him on like a day-by-day basis personally, you know, like his gloves and his coat and everything aren't Nora's. But if they are Nora's, that makes it way more interesting in my mind, because then it's why are they serving him and why are they serving him this faithfully? Because so far, our main example of a Nora that we have is the one that we call Nora, right?
Right.
And she isn't exactly a great person. So... and not a good influence on the gods that she interacts with. So the fact that we could potentially have Noras in situations where they are, you know, I will give my life for you, right? They still have that sense of loyalty, even though they have served multiple masters and maybe currently serve multiple masters. I find that really interesting, because then it's not something where it's just obligation for them to serve him. They could go and just leave again and go to some other god or whatever, but they decided to stick with him, even in the underworld, even when everything is dire and all of that stuff. Like,
I would say,
I love that.
I would say, though, that there's a very good, easy explanation, though, as to why they're Nora's, is that the regalia for this god has always been Nora's. They're just passed on from the previous god.
Okay. Well, no, but it's still the same. It's still the same god, though, because otherwise they wouldn't have.
Like, is it though?
Yeah. It's still the same god, same name, but it's just a different. From a human perspective, it's a different person. Because otherwise they wouldn't have because if it had,
It doesn't have any of the thoughts, wills, memories, or
totally
personality of the previous gods.
Yeah,
though.
but he's still, you know, he still is the same god.
Yeah,
right?
see, I feel like it's more of like a regalia function where he gets a name, right?
Well,
like,
here's a thing that I think explains why that isn't the case. Is that if it was the case that they have to be Nora's in order for the next generation and stuff, then the other gods wouldn't have been surprised by the fact that it wouldn't have been worth bringing up that they're Nora's, right? A bunch of regalia would have probably been Nora's by that point if they had just ever had a god that, you know, that got reincarnated.
Yeah, but I would almost assume at that point then that those regalia must stay with the god that dies and gets reincarnated, right? Like they have to.
Right, unless they're a Nora, right? Which, because if...
No, I'm meaning that every single regalia that outlasts a god cannot go to another god when that god dies, because then they would become a Nora.
Right, yes, because, the god just gets reincarnated and it doesn't change your pact of servitude. You know, I'm guessing. Yeah.
Well, no, I would say it has to be then,
right.
Because then, like you said, they would all be Noras, basically. Right. So, in this case here, I would say then that, like, you could have regalia that aren't attached to a god necessarily, right? Like,
right, because you could have because the way Noras are made is when a regalia that hasn't been relinquished from service to one god then goes and also makes a pact with another god. They're two-timing, right? But you could have regalia that are released from service to a god and don't
dying.
Oh, sure,
and say, I release you. You now have the freedom to do whatever you want,
and they just decide not to partner up with another god for a while,
or they could then go back to the next god's reincarnation and be like, I would like a new name, because it's going to be a new relationship with you.
Oh,
it's
sure,
that'd be the exact same dynamic.
I could see that happening. So regalia being like, hey, I served this iteration of the god, and I fully intend to come back, but I want to be starting fresh, kind of.
And in the same way that gods have multiple names because they are reincarnated multiple times over the course of eons. That's why Bishamon was at one point named as Vice Raven or something like that.
Yeah, whatever that name was. It's complicated.
Yeah, we can go back and look at it. But then wouldn't it make sense that, in the same way that like Kuro, for instance, has like Daikoku as his name as stuff as well, that you could have them have names that they got from previous gods that they just don't get called anymore.
I could see that potentially happening.
They had a healthy relationship with that god who then said, "You're relinquished. Now you can go and
be free. And if you want to continue serving me, then you know you are free to do as you wish."
Yeah, I think maybe the reason why I didn't think too much about that in general is because I assumed that there was more of a fate relationship with the gods and the Regalias, where it was they need the gods in order to actually continue existing.
Oh,
which
there might be
I don't think that tracks really with what we've got world building wise thus far.
At the very least, they probably need the gods to still have like power to some degree, right? Because they don't need to be wielded necessarily. They don't need to be wielded
to have power. Kazuma goes around constantly
and just
restrains.
Yeah, and that whole line, by the way, that the heavenly guard, supreme person or whatever, said of like a god without a regalia is powerless. Like that was interesting, because that's like,
which is apparently also a thing for those that are
a no.
Well, I would say this is calling into question the bit where I don't remember which god it was, but they were saying that Yato is actually able to summon some measure of strength, maybe because of his connection to
that was
far shore.
I think it was Kugaha when Yato was at the tree and he brought up all the masked phantoms to attack him. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, he was like, wow.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Whereas from their perspective, in the strictly spiritual sense, maybe, a god without a regalia is powerless.
Which is a very,
that's what I'm saying, that maybe we've flipped a little bit too much in our thoughts of that a god is always superior to a regalia, in that...
Right, because positionally they are, but their things that they do are different, right?
Right.
Nora was able to hold Yato hostage, right?
Regalia are the weapons, meaning that if you have a sentient weapon, if a weapon doesn't need to be wielded to be powerful, then they could theoretically actually be stronger than their masters, than their wielders.
When the one person said that, of a god without regalia is powerless, and our good friend got a bit upset about that, right? And like that was great having Kazuma be like, hey, I'll forget you said that, right? If you just we're done here, right?
Yes, exactly.
Like this party's over, this conversation's done, right?
Yeah. Kazuma is one of my favorite characters. Yeah,
Kazuma is fantastic.
Yeah,
but there was a part of me that even wondered if, is that something that a regalia is supposed to say? Like, even in the prestigious position that this regalia clearly was in, right?
Like an emissary of heaven.
An emissary of heaven that is part of their job is to enforce heaven's will over other gods when it is necessary,
probably,
right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, that almost feels kind of potentially sort of above their station to say.
Or maybe it's just the idea of that, are you suggesting that the heavens should go to war with the gods, basically? Like the idea that if the last time, like I would almost assume this would be kind of the level of the Titans and the gods of Olympus, meaning the last time we had war in the heavens,
it didn't go well.
It didn't go well for anybody. Meaning you don't want to say things like that because we're beings that have self, ego, will, feelings and stuff. You don't want to just be spiteful like that for the purpose of kind of enforcing your will. We want order here as well as you do. So don't try to just anger gods for the sake of angering gods, which is then why we had Bear Spider, nasty.
Yeah.
Just be like, I'm gonna
Hulk out and you want a dick measure? Fine. Get out the stick, right? Yeah. But yeah. Because gods, anytime that they're dealt with in mythology, I feel like they always, because if they're gods, right, then they kind of have generally a bit of attitude, So the idea of there being a security force that enforces the gods, like enforces law on the gods, not for the gods, right? For the gods as well, but,
Totally, yeah.
That definitely seems like the kind of thing that would cause issues like this fairly commonly, especially if the people doing the enforcing weren't particularly polite to the gods that they were enforcing. Like, there's the just bear with us, sir, this needs to happen, kind of a thing, versus the y'all suck without us. It's like
It would be kind of interesting, though, to see if there is some higher order within the god structure where heavens is something that is actually more or less run by Regalia than actually... Because so far, gods don't have a way of ascension, but Regalia do. The idea of an imperial Regalia being something that's so... much of a big deal.
Well, and we know how regalia are made. We don't necessarily know how gods are made. Like,
no, we do. They're born out of the wishes of people.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's right.
That's why if no one's wishing for a god anymore, then the god
you better have something already self-sustaining, or you're not going to exist in this economy. Trying to become a god,
Right, but what that means is that based on the whims and wills of the people of the current age, the humans, gods are basically sustained by that. And then it's, of course, their job to then do what they can to propagate their own survival by fulfilling the wishes of those people.
Exactly.
And as far as they don't upset the balance of the way things structurally work, then I think they should be fine. But also, there could be some dynamics that we're not aware of based on this enforcement by the Regalia on the gods.
But so I'm excited to see how Yato gets out of the underworld, because I'm sure he will. But man, when the drill piercing the heavens was brought up, and I'm like, this is wonderful.
It did work.
It did work
for Ebisu.
It did work for Ebisu, right? And
so far,
right? And mechanically, I love it, right? Because it totally works, and yet it's something that it makes sense that no one would think of, right?
Well, right. A vent is basically going to potentially cause destruction on whatever part of the human world that it comes out on. So it's like saying, well, we could do this.
Now that we have the locution brush,
Well, right. We could summon enough phantoms to be able to tear open a vent, but would it actually be smart? Because then when the gods respond to the vent popping up, they're going to see us coming through the vent with phantoms.
If it's a god of calamity, they might be like, okay, you're just being, throwing one of your tantrums again, like who knows?
Oh, that's when you hope that it's Bishamon that arrives at the vent and is like, what the hell is going on here?
Boy.
Actually, I need you to try and go through this vent.
First of all, I can explain.
I need you to save Yato.
Right.
Hell no. Okay.
No. That's where he is. We need you to save him. Yeah.
Hell yes. Thank you very much.
Right.
So, y'all, thank you so much for watching this episode's reaction and discussion. If you want to see the next episode's reaction and discussion right now, though, go check out the link in the description below for our Patreon. You can get on early access there. You can watch full-length timer reactions there, and all this comes with Discord access, so you can chat with us in the community there about this show, about anime in general, and also be sure to check out our Twitch channel.
Yes, the info, it's in the description.
Yeah, so if any of that interests you, we'll see you there. But until then, we're Semblance of Sanity. I'm Caleb.
I'm Jacob.
And we'll see you all
next time.